Hi, Get Unstuck Nation. Today episode is about protect your brand. So please welcome Get Unstuck expert Devin Miller from Miller IP Law. Devin Miller is the founder of Miller IP Law, where they help startup and small businesses understand intellectual property, including patents, trademarks, and copyrights. Devin wanted to provide a source for startup and small businesses where they could learn about legal protection and also how to help small business owner like himself build value into their business and protect their assets. Thank you so much for joining Get Unstuck video today, Devin.
Hey, it's my pleasure to be here. I'm excited to chat with you.
Yeah, so I just want to tell you first that I also a lawyer as a background, but I'm not really practice. So seems like we have something in common that okay, I also studied like the not an MBA, but also project management and entrepreneurship level
Mm.
of my master degree level afterwards. So I came to go further in business, but I'm still doing my LM currently. So I'm still like in the between the bridge between these two. Cannot give up on it.
Yeah, it's fun to have a bit of a kindred spirit. Certainly the legal arena is an interesting one, so it's great to have something in common.
Yeah. And can you tell me a little bit more like how do you start your entrepreneurial journey then?
Yeah, so I don't know. It's always hard to pinpoint the exactly when it started. For me, it probably really started. I was an undergraduate as I was kind of coming towards the end of undergraduate. I was studying electrical engineering and trying to decide what I wanted to do next. And I kind of had both a desire to do kind of my own startups or entrepreneur and be, do my own business, as well as I had a bit of interest in the legal sphere and where kind of legal meets engineering, which would be patent and trademark law. So was trying to kind of make a decision between those two and decided to chase down both. So I did both a law degree as well as an MBA degree. And then while I was doing those in tandem, it started with there was a business competition where people could come submit their ideas, and you could then generate them, make them, and then and compete in a business competition. So first year I entered with went and entered the competition, found a few other people I didn't know at the time. We all entered, generated an idea, and it was did okay the first year, and then we kind of came back the second year and. We're trying to come up with a new idea, decided to re-enter, and so as we were coming up that idea, had an idea for a wearable, so kind of a wearable that can monitor your hydration level. And this was in the days before the Apple Watch or the Fitbit or any of those, and so it's kind of a precursor to some of those. So came up with the idea, entered in the business competition. Then we were all graduating, so I decided I wanted to continue on. So I bought the different people out that were the partners in the business competition and continued on. So that kind of started the entrepreneur side of the journey. And then as I graduated, I went and worked for a few different law firms, for some big law firms and some top 100 law firms, and always kind of was running my startups and small businesses on the side and kind of doing two jobs at the same time. And then about 3 years ago or so, I was looking to say, okay, I'd like to do my own thing, both on the law side and the business side. So I started a couple of my own companies, which are Miller IP Law, and then also an engineering firm that kind of work hand in glove. So that was kind of the start to the last few years as to how I got to where I'm at today.
Uh-huh. And why you chose IP law then?
Um, it was a good way for me to utilize my engineering background. I still enjoyed engineering. I just didn't want to be an engineer. I wanted to work on multiple projects. I wanted to have a bit more diversity in what I did, and so I was looking for a way to incorporate engineering with what I was doing while not being an engineer. And so legal gave me the ability to see a lot of cool technology, work on a lot of cool projects while not being, not having or not being stuck on one project for a long period of time like a normal engineer would. So kind of pushed me towards intellectual property.
Mm-hmm. So, in your own definition, how important intellectual property is to anyone, basically?
Sure, and I'm sure it's a bit of a biased answer in the sense that you ask an attorney if it's important, they're going to tell you, of course, it's important. But really, there's when you look at intellectual property, patents or trademarks or whatnot. you're looking at why you would need them or what would be the purpose of them. And a couple things are, one is that, whether you're a startup, a small business, or a large business, a lot of, especially if you're in technology, if you're developing a new product, you have a lot of R&D, or research and development that goes in that product. And while it takes a lot of time, once you create it, it's easy for someone else to say, oh, I like that idea, and then they'll copy it. And so one of the things with intellectual property is trying to protect all of that time and effort and development and costs and associated with developing a product, such that you can maintain your competitive advantage. And then it also, in addition to kind of protecting the business, it also becomes an asset that you can invest in, right? So you can think of, hey, not only is it just protecting my business, but that way, if I need to do angel investors or venture capital, otherwise get investors in my business, or someday I want to sell it or merge with another company, it's an asset of the company that has a value to it, that then you can actually have an valuation that tags to why is your company valuable. So it kind of gives you a few different reasons as to both protecting your business as you grow, as well as creating assets within the business.
And because of that, when would be the good time for business owner to register these marks?
Yeah, so I mean, if it's a patent, you're going to want to do it, and I'll kind of answer the question primarily with patents and trademarks. So, patent is one that's for inventions. If you create something, it has something, a functionality, utility to it. That's what a patent is going to go for. And when you're saying when do you want to get started, well, really, there's kind of two things. One is you have, at least in the U.S., I'm answering on U.S. law, and it can vary a bit depending on state by state
Mhm.
or country by country. Is once you put anything out in the public, so you offer it for sale, you put it on a website, you do a seminar or anything else, you have a year within which, from that date you put it in the public, that you can file on a patent. Meaning, if you wait for longer than a year, you're not able to file a patent on it, and you're going to just donate it to the public, basically.
Oh,
So that's kind of the longest you want to wait, is that 1 year time frame. And then the other thing you always want to consider on a patent is the US, along with most of the other countries in the world, are a first to file system, meaning the first person to file on a invention is presumed to be the owner inventor of it. And so if you wait too long, and let's say it's a very competitive atmosphere, a lot of people are working on it, inventing a lot of cool things, then if you wait longer and somebody else files on it first, then you're stopped from doing that. So usually you want to, at the early, as you develop the product, did you get it far enough along that you can explain it to somebody else? Then you're going to at least want to approach an attorney to chat with them about what the next steps are, or certainly don't wait longer than that year that you put it out in the public.
oh.
On brands and oh, go ahead.
No, no, no. I'm thinking along with you. Sorry.
So on trademarks or with brands, that one's going to be a bit different in the sense that there isn't a specific time you have to file, or it goes a bit, or you can't file on it. But rather, what you're looking at is, as you're building a brand, as you're building a bit of people recognize what you're doing, you've got a good name, you're going to want to start to protect that, right? So if you're and if you're building a brand and you're saying, hey, we're starting to get some traction, people are starting to recognize our name, you're going to want to make sure to protect that. If you're just in the idea stage, or you're just doing it, then it can be a little bit less important. So it kind of depends on, as you're building the brand, how important is that to your company, and how unique is it, and when do you want to get started on it, and then you'll usually do it. Usually once you get the business going and you get it out there, you're going to want to start thinking about, okay, our plan is to grow the brand and protect it. Then you're going to want to file a trademark on it.
What about copyright?
Yeah, so copyrights are a bit different in the sense that once you, and this is is a definition, copyrights are kind of for creative work. So if you think of photos, pictures, videos, books, blogs, and podcasts, all of those fall under copyrights. And so as you're saying, hey, I'm creating my copyright, once you create your copyright, you technically own it. So if once you write the book, you have ownership of that book, and you have the ownership of the copyright of the book. Typically, when you register copyright, is you're going to want to do two things. One is you register it so that you can say, hey, I can show by as of the date that I filed it, by this date I created whatever that material is. So what you don't want to do is, I took the photo, I took it 5 years ago, somebody else copies a photo, I can't show when I created it or when I actually originally took the photo. And so now you're getting into a question of who created it first. So if you have a valuable photo or a book or something, once you create it and you want to monetize it, you want to use it, then you're going to want to file a copyright so that you can define the date that you actually created the creative work.
Yeah. Again, everyone, whoever listens this, is maybe different in the country law as well, domestic wise. So, for example, in Thailand, you have no need to register copyright. So it's already
Mm.
automatically covered if you really the one who produced that kind of invented things. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's always headache to compare between this conflict of law between each country. But I also thinking and also planning to do trademark in the US as well. Actually, have been doing some research in the past few months. I think I told
Mm.
you about that. But yeah, it's been interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot. It's interesting how each countries have a bit of their own set of rules and approach it a bit differently, and then also the various things that you have to consider. I mean, there's always a strategy that goes into your business, not just on the legal side, but on the business side of what makes sense from the business side. How can you grow the business? Where's the money? Where do you invest the money? Where's the best return on it, and what makes sense? And so, as you're growing your business, as with everything else that you're strategizing on and trying to figure out where to, how to grow the business, how to make it successful, intellectual property always overlaps in whichever country or wherever you're located.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So normally how it would be different between working with startup or small business owner versus Fortune 100 companies, like how on the attorney
Yeah.
side, how it's different to operate working with them.
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest differences, and so I worked with some of the bigger companies. I worked with Amazon.com and Red Hat, Intel, Ford, and others. And the fun and exciting thing is they're a big business. They put out a product, you get to see, hey, I helped work on that. On the other hand, you're a fairly small cog in a big wheel, meaning you only do a very small piece of whatever you're working on. And so you don't have as much of an impact. They're not coming to you for guidance. They're not coming to you for advice or strategy or anything else. They already have that fairly well in place. And they're saying, we just need this small portion of the puzzle done. And that's what you work on. On the opposite side, when you work with a startup or a small business, you get to participate in the strategy. You get to sit down, see what they're doing, how you can help, what would make sense for them, strategize with them, and work to see how you could actually make that, make a difference with their company. And, usually with they're patenting their main product. They have, they only have a limited budget. They wanting to make sure they have that protected. And so you just get to have a lot more of a hands-on, work with them, strategize with them, understand, and have a bigger impact on them. So that's why I typically like to work with the startups and the small businesses, because you get to see your impact, you get to strategize and work a lot more with them.
Normally, when your clients come to you, usually what would be the most popular question that they ask you?
Sorry, or what would they ask me? Say it again.
The most popular question that they ask you when clients come to you, what would you get?
Well, the first question is always, how much is this going to cost? And I mean that one's gonna, and that's, and I don't blame them in the sense that, if you're a startup or a small business, you have more money and more things to spend money on than money to spend. And so it's usually you're always trying to figure out, where can I spend the money? How does this fit in the budget? But if you're to get beyond, how much is this going to cost, and I get why, then they're going to ask a lot of the same questions you asked of, when do I need to start thinking about this? When should I get started? Is what I'm doing even patentable or trademarkable or copyrightable? Is there a value to it? When, what is the return on it? Should, does this make sense for me to do right now, or should I wait? And it's kind of those questions of, when should I get started? How should I get started? Or typically the questions that they're going to ask.
Yeah. And normally how you respond to them then? Like, do you have any podcast to follow or any source that you give to them?
Yeah, I mean, every client's a bit different in the sense that so yes, there are some, answers, some of the ones we went over. This is when you think about starting a trademark or starting a copyright or those type of things. And then a lot of times when we do talk about budgets, we try and different options. So one, if I were to recommend, if budget allows, an attorney is always the best option. It provides you, the most return, the best protection. They know what they're doing and have the experience. But we also get that there is, competing interests. Budgets may not always allow for you to go to an attorney and be able to do that. And so we also do DIY courses or DIY products that allow people to say, hey, while we still recommend an attorney, having something in place and be able to at least have some protection as you grow your business is certainly better than nothing. And so that's another. So we kind of, depending on, hey, what's your budget? How can we work with you? What do you have working on? What are you doing? Let's talk about your strategy. And so those are kind of the considerations that as we work with startups and small businesses, how you start to navigate and how you start to work with them.
Yeah, I think I went through the classes of the trademark. I just talked to you from my experience though. It's kind of
Sure.
confusing to be very honest. Like it's very
Mhm.
detailed and somehow it's overlapping in between. And yeah, even me reading that, I'm like have to second guess what I having in hand and then going back to compare that with like which one actually I really wanted. So how can a person choose how many classes they should register trademark? I just asked the trademark right now.
Yeah, I mean, that one's pretty business specific. I mean, if you
Hmm.
have a small niche business, let's say you're only in the food delivery business, I'm making it up, but you're in the food delivery business and that's all that your business is, then you're probably going to be in one class where it gets more difficult. And to give you a level set, classes are kind of different categories of what you're trademarking for. So when you file a trademark, you're going to have to look at how you're going to use your trademark, because what they do is they don't say you can't get a trademark for every use of the word for any type of thing ever out there, but they say you tie what your trademark is or what your mark is with the types of goods or services you're going to work with. So if you're to think of Nike, they have a trademark for athletic wear, gear, sports gear, and those type of things. They don't have a trademark for Nike Automotive, and because they don't do automobiles, they don't sell cars in that, and so they file their trademark and they get protection for the types of goods or services they're going to use Nike for. Well, the same thing when you're doing yours. If you're only doing food delivery, it's probably one category. You're really just doing one thing. But let's say you have a restaurant, you have food delivery, you also have an online business where you sell recipes, you have a blog. Well, those are all different categories. You're doing a few different goods and services. And so you're having to choose the different classes or categories based on what you're doing. So really, it kind of depends on how broad your business is, how many different things you're doing as to which categories you're going to want to fit into. And then you're going to say, okay, now the other question always comes up is, one's if I can't afford all the categories, right? I really have 10 different classes or categories of what I'm doing and I can't cover them all, that gets too expensive. Then you're going to look at which ones are the most important to your business. Maybe yes, maybe you do have a blog but it really doesn't make you any money and it's just for fun or to share some information. Then you're saying maybe that's not where I do the trademark. But let's say on the other hand, your restaurant is where you make 90% of your money. You're certainly going to want to protect the restaurant and have a trademark on that. So if you can cover them all, that's great, and that's what's recommended. If not, then you're going to look and say, where's the core of my business and where does the bulk of the money come from, and let's make sure that that's protected.
Yeah, that's very clear. Thank you for sharing. And
Sure.
how many years is covered? Like, do we need to like keep extended it?
So trade or I'll go through patents, trademarks, and copyrights for
Okay.
kind of length that they cover. So patents are 20 years from the time you file the patent application. So you, assuming that they examine it and deem it as patentable, then it's going to be 20 years from that date is when you're able to go and have that patent. And once 20 years is up, then your coverage is over, and anybody can do what is covered in your patent application. On a trademark, trademarks really continue on for as long as you're continuing to use them. So if you had trademark for Disney or for Nike or Apple, and you do it for 500 years, but your company's still going for 500 years, and they're still ongoing, you're still making products and selling things, you can keep your trademark for as long as your company's around and using the trademark. Vice versa, if you file a trademark, your company goes out of business in a year, then your trademark ends. And so it's really more of a matter of, now there are a few maintenance fees. You do have to pay a few fees along the way in order to make or continue to have it active with the government. Those are usually fairly nominal, and they're not a huge expense, but that's part of maintaining it. But as long as you pay the fees and continue to use it, you can continue to use a trademark. Copyrights are going to be, at least in the US, 70 years plus the life of the author. So if you're to think of the author, let's say I'm the author, I write the world's best book. I write Harry Potter or Tom Clancy or whichever book you like, then however long I live, I get the copyright plus an additional 70 years. And so that allows, if your family or other people, to continue to, for a period of time, to have the copyright in order to recoup the cost, or to make money off of it. And then at the end of those years, then it becomes material that anybody can use or that they can do after. So those are kind of, depending on whether it's a patents for 20 years, trademarks can go as long as you want, and copyrights or life of the author plus 70 years kind of gives you a different idea of what, or kind of how long they run.
Yeah, I think that's why a person who interested to protect their business in either of this category would like to have a conversation with attorney first to have a peace of mind where they want to move things forwards, right? So in case anyone wants to work with you or follow with you in any type of work, where can they reach out to you then?
Yeah, so a couple ways to reach out. The easiest way is if you have questions about patents, trademarks, copyrights, or anything else with business, we offer free strategy sessions where you can sit down, take a few minutes, ask us your questions. You don't have to worry about paying attorney time or if these are good or bad questions, if you're too early or too late or anything of that nature, but you can really just go ahead and ask us. And so to grab some time, schedule some time with an attorney, myself, or other attorneys at the firm to do a strategy session, just go to strategymeeting.com. So all one word, strategymeeting.com. If you want to learn just a little bit more about myself, the firm, kind of what our prices are, what services we offer and everything else, you can go to lawwithmiller.com. And that's, again, all one word. You can go check us out, find out more information, learn a little bit more about what we do and how we do it and how we approach it. But those are kind of the two best ways.
Thank you so much for joining Get Unstuck Radio today, Devin.
Hey, it was great to talk to you and fun to share a little bit.
Thank you. Hey, thank you for watching this episode. If you enjoyed the show, you can subscribe here or here. And this is the previous episode. Check it out. See you next time.